Hi guys and welcome back to my channel. The case that I'm going to be looking into today is the murder of Anthony Walker, who was murdered in a vicious, racially motivated attack. And it was just, what happened to him was just horrific. Like, he was such a lovely young man and, oh, it's just so awful. But this case was suggested by Adam, so thank you for that. I appreciate any suggestions you guys have. And of course, if you have any more, please do let me know. Anthony Walker was born on the 21st of February in 1987 to parents G and Steve Walker in Hutton, Merseyside, England. Anthony had 5 siblings, but at the time of this occurring, he was living with his parents, 2 sisters, and 1 brother. Growing up, he was attacked quite a lot and bullied quite a lot. He was called names when he was younger. He was very bullied in primary school and secondary school. It's just really, really sad. And he was of, I believe, African descent and received a lot of racial name calling and things like that. And it's just, he suffered that sort of all of his life, I guess. It's just devastating just because of the colour of his skin, how people think like they have the right to call people names and things. But despite all of that, Anthony was such a lovely young man. He was 18 at the time of this occurring, this case. He was doing his A-levels. He wanted to become a lawyer. He had his mindset on what he wanted to do and he would go for it. And he was just kind of one of them people who was really friendly, really nice. He would do anything for anyone. He always wanted to help his family out, his friends out, anything. He was just there to help people. He loved to laugh. He loved to have fun. He was normal, just a normal guy. He attended church. He was a devout Christian and he was working really hard in school. He was very dedicated to that. He loved to play basketball. That was his favourite sport at the time. Again, going back to him helping his family out whenever he could, when he got his first job and his first paycheck for that job, he gave it to his mum to help pay for this car. I believe they were having a lot of car troubles and they were after getting a new one and things like that. So he goes over, he gives her this money, she takes him to this car place and she lets him believe that he bought the whole car because it was just so nice of him to offer his very first wage to try and help his family out. So it was just, he's just such a lovely guy. He was very well put together and he knew exactly what he wanted out of life and was very focused on that. On the 29th of July in 2005, Anthony had been spending the evening with his 17-year-old girlfriend, Louise Thompson. Now, they were actually babysitting Anthony's nephew. And also there was Anthony's cousin, Marcus Binns. Now, they finished babysitting about 11 p.m. They left the house and they started walking to the bus stop so that Louise could catch the bus home. So all 3 of them were walking to this bus stop. And when they arrived sort of there, they met 2 strangers who began basically trying to cause trouble, shouting racial slurs, things like that. These men were 17-year-old Michael Barton and his friend 20-year-old Paul Taylor. Michael began shouting racial slurs at the trio, but they didn't respond because, again, Anthony had had this all his life. He didn't want to cause trouble. He didn't want conflict. He was obviously the victim in these horrible things that they were saying about him, but he wanted to just walk away. He didn't want to get involved. He just wanted to leave the scene. So he said that they would go and walk to the next bus stop instead. They cut through this park and, you know, they would just leave, which was the right thing for them to do, and they did. But Michael and Paul didn't stop there, which you would think that, you know, they've walked away, they've shouted off a few things, been a bit mouthy, been horrible, but that was that. They were gone. No, they didn't do that. They decided that they were going to go, because they were probably going to the next bus stop, this is what they assumed, they were going to go and they were going to meet them at the next bus stop and they were going to carry on this abuse, I guess. So they did. They got there before them. They waited, lied in wait, and they ambushed them. Louise and Marcus managed to get away from the boys, but Anthony didn't, sadly, so they legged it. And then Anthony was kind of stuck there with both of them. And this is when Paul grabbed a ice pickaxe, I don't really know what they're called, that you use for climbing, I guess. I think. I don't actually know. That Michael already had, and he raised it up and he attacked Anthony with it straight in the head, basically. He hit him hard and then he tried to remove the axe and leg it, but it didn't work. He couldn't get it out. So he ran away with his hands full of Anthony's blood, and off they went. Anthony was left there. It was so awful. Marcus finally came back with some help, and he came back to find his cousin like that, which is just absolutely devastating. So they obviously ring an ambulance. He's taken to Whiston Hospital and then on to Walton Care, which is like a neurological special centre, I think. But sadly, the damage to Anthony's brain was very severe, and I mean, you can imagine how much damage that would actually do. He was thought to be brain dead within seconds of the attack, after the attack occurred, and despite everyone's best efforts to try and, you know, bring him back or bring him back around, it wasn't working, and he sadly passed away at 5:25 a.m. with all of his family around him. Now, police immediately branded this as a racial attack. They were looking for the perpetrators who did it, and it didn't take long before some names were coming up, Michael and Paul's names. And obviously they were looking at everything. They launched an investigation straight away, and they just shared it out to the public. The community was devastated by what had happened, and the police were just doing everything they could to find the killers. Obviously, that when their names did crop up, they were looking more into them, but it actually turned out that they had fled the country within 6 hours of the attack happening. He was just trying to walk his girlfriend to a bus stop to allow her to go home, and he was murdered in a racially motivated attack. Like, he even left the scene, left the conflict that these boys were causing to try and get away from him, to try and, you know, he didn't even react, and they followed him and killed him, and it's just devastating. The police, like I said, they were doing everything they could to try and find these people, but something that they don't normally do is release the name of the suspects, and they did. They released Michael and Paul's names in the hope that they would catch them. And it turns out that Michael Barton's biological brother was actually a footballer for, I think it was Manchester City. He was called Joey Barton. Now, the pair had the same parents but were not raised together by the sounds of it, and he actually made an appeal for Michael to come home and to face the justice for what he had done, to basically turn himself in. It also came to light that Michael had actually approached his brother to ask for £1,000, and he told him no, and that he should turn himself in. Obviously, he ignored that and he fled the country. I guess he was just trying to get any money so that he could just flee, but, you know, his brother wasn't having any of it, thank goodness. I mean, he still fled. He must have got some money from somewhere, but, you know, he didn't fund him to the point where he could possibly then keep fleeing and going to other places, I guess. Then there were rumours going around that these boys had actually gone to Amsterdam and that they had been arrested over there and they were being flown back. The police actually denied these rumours. There was a reason for that. It was true, but the police denied them initially. And then on the 3rd of August 2005, Michael and Paul turn up at the airport and they are being escorted by police from Amsterdam, I think. And then this is when they were officially arrested. Now, the police did later admit that they had denied these rumours because they wanted the boys to come back willingly. They didn't want to have to go through this extraditing process and things like that. You know, it would have been a lot easier if they just came back off their own accord. And that is why they did that. Paul admitted to murdering Anthony, but Michael didn't admit to the fact that he gave Paul the axe, that he started the entire thing. So he went to trial and Michael Barton was found guilty of the murder of Anthony Walker. He was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum of sentence of 17 years and 8 months. Paul Taylor also received a life sentence for the murder of Anthony Walker, and he was to serve a minimum of 23 years and 8 months. Some other people were charged in the case basically for aiding and abetting them. I think, you know, helping to conceal them, helping them to run away from the law. They got some charges like community service and things like that. And that is the end of the case, really. I mean, it's so absolutely devastating that this young man, Anthony Walker, he was 18. He had his whole life ahead of him. He had these big plans. He was such a lovely guy. And he was just brutally murdered in this racial attack that was just totally unwarranted. He tried to leave, and it's just so devastating that these horrible people just thought. I don't even know what they thought. I don't understand. I never will be able to understand. There's a lot of people in the world like you guys, we just don't get it. Don't get it. My heart goes out to Anthony's family. Absolutely devastating loss of life. Just so unnecessary, like it often is. And it's just heartbreaking that this was all down to race. But yeah, that is the end of the case. If you guys have enjoyed this video, give me a big thumbs up, subscribe to the channel for similar content. Anyway, that's all I have today on the case of Anthony Walker. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye.